Good morning. It's 7:30 on this Hump Day Wednesday. Thanks for joining us on this August 28th here on News 6 Plus and clickorlando.com. This is Breakfast with Bridgett. I'm your host, Bridgett Ellison. It's good to have you with us. And we're waking up to a little bit of news on the Space Coast. If you haven't heard, Polaris Dawn was scrubbed again. It was supposed to happen this morning, and now it's been postponed, so we'll get to that. Also had a launch booster fire because some Starlink satellites were launched overnight. They got there okay, but the booster, not so great. Also taking a look at the Lake Mary All-Stars. They stopped by News 6 yesterday and answered a lot of viewer questions, and they have so many celebrations coming up, so we'll talk about that in a moment. But first, we want to get a check of that forecast with Chief Meteorologist Candace Campos, and it really still feels like the dog days. And I had my umbrella yesterday. I went to go get my hair done, and then of course it's raining coming in and then going out.
Of course, right when you do your hair. But when you're a sweaty mess getting out of the gym, it doesn't rain, right? That's how it always works. But we're going to be seeing the same story as yesterday. We're going to be dodging some rain here and there. It's not going to be a full day event of rain. It's not going to be anything strong or severe, but a good heavy downpour could last a little bit of time, which will, of course, never fail that it will be coming in when you least want the rain and the storms.
So it's early dismissal today.
It is early dismissal. It's going to be around that
kids.
time. I was dealing with some rain at about that 1 to 3 o'clock hour. So that's kind of what we talked about yesterday, that it was going to be really close. So I dealt with some rain around 2 o'clock. It looks like that's going to be almost kind of the same timing as today. So plan your day accordingly, right?
Okay.
All right, let's take it to the map, show you what's going on across Central Florida. We have that onshore breeze that's going to continue to bring in those scattered showers. Right now, we're seeing some of it right along our coastline. That's right now going to be your best shot for rain for beach goers for today. A couple of those little pockets of some heavy downpours at times into areas of Port Orange, into Edgewater as well. And a little further south, it's kind of same story there in Brevard County, where we are getting those quick little hit or miss showers out throughout the day. That East Coast sea breeze will continue to push inland, and that's when we will start to see those storms start to kind of make their way out towards the Gulf, right? So by 12 o'clock, we will see those scattered showers developing right along in the I-4 zone turnpike by about 2, that dismissal time, right? And then as it continues to push out towards our western communities, it will start to favor more of kind of that west coast or the western viewing area, that fringe of Lake Sumter County as well. And then we'll be dry, and then it's going to be a rinse and repeat forecast as we head into your Thursday as well. Temperatures out the door right now, we are in the mid to upper 70s, low 80s though in southern Brevard County. And as we get results here with your full 7-day forecast, those temperatures are going to be again near normal, low 90s. 93 will be your high. Our average for this time of the year is about 91. So that's kind of in that same zone that we're going to be dealing with. But again, those storms will be tracking towards the west. Feels like temperatures will be between 100 and 105. So nothing earth-shattering in the rain department, in the storm department, in the temperature department. It's just going to be kind of a typical summer day. We are watching 2 areas in the tropics. No big tropical concerns for us here in Central Florida. So that's certainly some good news. And you can see the parade forecast on Saturday. There is a 60% chance of rain, but that's really going to be favoring after the parade. The parade's at about 10, I believe. So we're going to be still pretty good. Rain chance is still pretty low at that point of the day. And then we have Labor Day with those afternoon showers and thunderstorms cranking up a little further, up to about a 60%. But I think as long as we've got those kind of earlier in the afternoon kind of things, we should be good to go. That does include the 2 parades, I should say. I can't put the parades everywhere in my 7-day, but we've got the Disney parade tomorrow, and then we've got the Saturday Lake Mary parade, the hometown parade on Saturday.
Awesome. Well, we're going to do it rain or shine.
That's right. As long as it's not lightning, we're good to go. We're there. I'll be there.
Yes. All right. Sounds good, Candace. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye. And we want to check in on that traffic. And meteorologist Michelle Morgan is over in the traffic center. And for Trooper Steve, how's it going? Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, Bridgett. It's going good. Over here tracking traffic.
And how's it been this morning?
It's been pretty good. A few major accidents that actually caused some delays, but Not a whole lot, but traffic is beginning to pick up across Central Florida. Of course, the buses are out, people are out and about. So I am seeing some minor delays, especially in and out of the city, and looking at some delays on I-4 heading towards Lakeland. So as you take a look at the maps here, you can see overall we are seeing green, but there are plenty of icons showing congestion that's in that yellow, and then a few minor crashes in the red. But I do want to talk about this here, looking at some congestion as you are heading towards I-4. This is eastbound. Again, this is right near the Sanford area. So if you are heading out that way, I am tracking, again, traffic moving around 15 to 20 miles per hour, so allow extra time. I was tracking a crash earlier this morning. It has cleared. This is right along 17 northbound near Pleasant Hill Road. We're still seeing some backups in that area. So either give yourself extra time or use an alternate route this morning. But overall, your drive times are still looking pretty good in the green for the most part. If you're heading towards 528 eastbound, I-4 to 95, it'll take you about 36, 37 minutes. And then the turnpike, north or southbound from 27 to I-4, it'll take you about 20 minutes, but seeing some minor delays on I-4 westbound from Lake Mary to Maitland, it'll take you about 10 minutes. So you want to allow extra time this morning if that's part of your commute. But all in all, looking pretty standard as we kick off our Wednesday morning.
All right, that sounds all good there. And what else do you have going on for today in the week, Michelle?
Well, since you asked, I'm filling in for Candace on Friday. She has the
Okay,
day off. So that'll be fun. You'll see me again.
that'll be good.
And
That'll be good.
yeah, that'll be good. And then that's about it. Not a whole lot.
All
What about
right.
you?
You know what? I'm supposed to do a play date today, and I'm a little nervous about the weather now that Candace has, basically told me that I need to have that umbrella ready. So, but if
Yes,
I'm more
every
afraid of
day.
if I cancel the play date, Michelle, if you know what I mean. So,
Oh, I know what you mean. Well, hopefully the weather will be fine for the play date.
yeah, yeah, we'll make it work one way or the other. But yeah, okay. Well, have a great morning, and I'll see you back here Friday.
All righty,
All
sounds
right.
good. You
All
take
right.
care.
Thanks, Michelle. So we
Bye.
want to get to a few of the headlines. Like I mentioned, we had some snafus with Starlink's booster. Polaris Dawn was scrubbed. We want to talk about the All Stars. Also coming up after the break, I have a live interview with a doctor from Health First talking about concussions, which is, something we all really want to know about, especially if you're active, if you play sports, if you do anything that would involve possible head injuries, or you have a student athlete. So we'll break down what you need to know about concussions in a little bit. But first, those headlines. The Starlink launch booster fire. This was breaking news overnight. SpaceX had a rocket launch from the Cape. It wasn't Polaris Dawn, though. They had a Falcon 9 liftoff just before 4 with more Starlink satellites on board. The launch was fine, but that rocket booster caught fire and tipped over during the landing on the drone ship in the Atlantic. And there she goes. SpaceX is now investigating what went wrong, but, that booster served them well. It did more than 20 launches, and so now its time is done. Meantime, Polaris Dawn launch was scrubbed once again. It was scrubbed previously for a helium leak issue. Now it's scrubbed for some weather conditions 5 days out because the conditions need to be a certain way in order to. Everything needs to line up a certain way for all of this to be pulled off. But News 6's Eric Von Aiken has the explanation of what comes next for Polaris Dawn.
Good morning to you from a dark and desolate Kennedy Space Center. The few lights around here are the ones behind me brightly shining at the launch pad where, as you see, the Falcon 9 is still sitting there because last night, yet another scrub. So that makes 2 days in a row now. The first one was a helium leak during fueling. The second one last night was because of what SpaceX calls unfavorable weather conditions. So maybe you're saying to yourself, why is SpaceX even looking ahead to the end of the mission when this rocket's still sitting on the launch pad? Reason is because these 4 commercial astronauts are doing 2 things that either hasn't been done in a long, long time or has never been done. First of all, they're going straight up 3 times higher than the International Space Station. Well, the second thing, and this is where splashdown matters, is they're doing a spacewalk, the first ever non-governmental spacewalk with these 4 commercial astronauts. Because All 4 of them and the capsule will be exposed to the vastness of space and the vacuum of space. They need to pre-breathe oxygen for about 2 days. So as soon as they lift off, basically trying to get rid of the nitrogen in their bloodstream, much like divers do to avoid decompression sickness, the bends. So because they're using all that oxygen, they only have about 5 or 6 days worth of oxygen on board this capsule. That's why SpaceX looking ahead 5 days to make sure that when that oxygen runs out, they can come home and they can land without big waves in the ocean off the coast of Florida. For now at the Kennedy Space Center, Eric Von Eyck at Getting Results, News 6.
All right, thanks, Eric. So you learned a lot there. We'll be watching and waiting for the latest announcements on the rescheduling with Polaris Dawn, and we'll keep you posted. Now to the Lake Mary All-Stars, and the celebrations continue. Got some parades coming up. News 6's Mark Glayman has more on how they'll be honored tomorrow at Disney World, and there's that parade coming up on Saturday at Lake Mary.
The Little League World Series champions are enjoying their moment in the spotlight. Just 2 days removed from their historic win over Chinese Taipei, the Lake Mary All-Stars, their coaches, and parents stopped by the News 6 studio.
Chase, what's it been like for you?
Just crazy that we won the whole thing.
Yeah.
The team is now gearing up for a couple of celebrations in their honor. The city of Lake Mary announcing the route for their parade on Saturday. It will head down Crystal Lake Avenue and south on 4th Street past City Hall. Parks and Rec Director Brian Knipe telling us more about what to expect.
The kids get to ride in the back or in convertible Corvettes, and awesome. From what I hear, monster trucks. We have mascots from the theme parks, also the major sports organizations from across Central Florida.
Local leaders saying they're overwhelmed with support for the All-Stars and are expecting a big turnout for Saturday's celebration.
I think it's going to be something for the record books, not just for the athletic record books, but for the community.
Yeah, it really has been an inspiration. So, you know what I say about a parade, everyone's always so happy because no one's going to come to a parade that doesn't want to be at a parade. So I love it. Lots of positive energy there. So if you can't make it out to the one on Saturday, we'll have it on News 6 right here live starting at 9:30. The parade starts at 10. So join us for all the festivities with that. And it's just a feel-good story, and we're basking in it with the rest of you. So we'll have a quick break. We'll come right back and talk to Dr. LaGalbo, a neuropsychologist from Health First, about athletes and concussions and what you need to know to stay safe. Welcome back to Breakfast with Bridgett, streaming live on News 6 Plus at clickorlando.com at 7:44. And we want to talk to a doctor, which is something we really enjoy here on Breakfast. And today we have Dr. Anthony LaGalbo back with us. And it's good to see you again, doctor. I think the last time we talked, it was about memory issues like Alzheimer's, dementia, and what those differences were. And you're in Melbourne at the Memory Disorder Clinic, so that's really what you focus on day to day. But there's so much to think about when it comes to keeping everything healthy up here.
Yes, definitely. I've done a lot of concussion work, sports concussion specifically, with athletes, student athletes primarily, ranging from Little League and Pop Warner all the way up to professional athletes. And concussion is a hot item, especially this time of year when people are going back to school and participating in sports. So I appreciate the opportunity to be with you and chat about it.
And it's a lot to think about because it is something that covers a broad range of activities. Where do you see the most concussions when it comes to the kids?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Here in Florida, football is very popular, and there's a lot of people who play it. And I think because of that, and also because of the intensity of the sport, we see a lot of concussions in football. However, we also see a lot of concussions in other sports too, both males and females. And if you look at actually how many people are participating in a sport, and out of those, how many of them have a concussion, one of the highest rates is often in cheerleading because of the stunting and tumbling that's involved in competitive cheer. So we certainly see concussions in sports other than football. Soccer, lacrosse has gained popularity here in Florida in recent years. Basketball, softball and baseball. And really, no sport is immune. I've seen even rowers have concussions at times. So it can happen in any sport. And that's why I think it's important to be aware of what the signs and symptoms are so that we can identify them if something happens and make sure that we take care of that athlete and treat them so that they are able to recover as fast as possible without having any lingering kind of problems.
And when we think about what is a concussion and how are they measured, what typically happens that brings one on? Because of course we're thinking, okay, there's been an impact to the head of some sort. How do you minimize that? Because it's not necessarily that you can prevent them totally just by wearing a helmet. So that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you will never get a concussion just because you have on head protection. So what classifies as a concussion, and how do you tell how severe it is?
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, a helmet can offer some protection, but in contact sports in particular, I don't think we're ever going to prevent them completely. It's just the nature of how some of those sports are. One avenue, though, is to try to educate athletes on correct tackling procedures, for example, things that are safer for them to do, not leading with their head and so forth. But in terms of diagnosing a concussion or determining whether someone has had one, while it's true most concussions happen as a result of a blow to the head, you can also have a concussion even if you don't get hit in the head. If you're struck in the body hard enough or your body is shaken around violently, your head can kind of whip back and forth and your brain inside of your skull can become agitated in there, and that can cause a concussion sometimes too, even if someone was not hit directly in the head or didn't fall and hit their head on the ground, for example. So it's important, like I said, to be aware of what the symptoms might be. The number one symptom usually is headache or a sense of pressure inside the head, but people can also have sensitivity to light or noise, sometimes dizziness or lightheadedness, nausea. They can have changes in their emotions. They might be more emotional, could be tearful or irritable. Some people may have changes in their thinking skills. They might have trouble concentrating or remembering things, or just seem kind of confused and disoriented. So anytime there's a suspected injury where someone looks like they took a hard hit or a hard fall, it's important, I think, to check them out, ask them a few questions, and especially someone who knows them, functioning or baseline level might be. Some programs have actually baseline testing, and that's something that I think is also very helpful to determine whether someone's had an injury and when it's time for them to return, if they've recovered, if they have had a baseline evaluation before even participating in the sport.
And so as you're in a live game or a match and someone may have, had to take a timeout because they don't feel well, or maybe they did get a blow but they want to keep going, how do you determine what to do next? Maybe if you're a parent, a coach, or someone, another team member watching this happen, how do we look out for each other when it comes to concussions? Because you said the big danger is to keep going when you really need to sit it out.
Right. Yeah. So the good news is when people have a concussion, it is a brain injury, which is a serious thing, but it's a mild brain injury. And most people do fully recover if it's identified and treated properly. But one risk is when someone has a concussion, they may or may not notice it or realize it, and they continue to participate in a risky sport that might result in them getting hit in the head again a second time within a short period. That's when things sometimes get a little more complicated. And so trying to avoid that type of scenario, I think, is real important. So coaches or parents or people on the sideline also need to be aware of what the signs and symptoms are, or just observing to see if something, a concerning hit or blow happens, and someone maybe isn't acting exactly like themselves afterwards, because we can't always rely on the athlete themselves to say, hey, I don't feel right, I need to come out, I need to stop. Sometimes people will do that, but in other cases, other folks that are observing may need to be the ones to really be keeping an eye. And even if you're not sure, it's better to have someone come out and wait until they can be evaluated by a medical professional. It could be an athletic trainer, or a lot of folks with kids, especially, maybe go to their pediatrician or their family doctor first, just to make sure, is this something that we need to be concerned about before going back to a situation where someone could have another injury.
And we have to go shortly, but when we look at your cumulative health as you get older, are we learning more about how, concussions over time are impacting, our health later on in life?
That's a good question. For me, I would say the jury is still a little bit out on that, and the factor that gets kind of put in there that makes it complicated is that we deal with concussions much differently now than maybe years past. And so folks that had concussions decades ago, they were probably not managed like we manage concussions now. And they might have been at greater risk of having that scenario that I described a moment ago, where they had an injury, they were having symptoms, not feeling right, and maybe then they had another injury on top of that before they fully recovered. I'm hoping that that's happening less frequently with our kids nowadays and youth nowadays, that's not going to continue to be as much of an issue as maybe it was. But yes, some folks who've had repetitive head injuries that were not managed correctly may be at greater risk of developing some other problems later on. Not everybody, but there are some folks that fall into that category.
And so who's going to get you cleared to go back into your activities or your play after a head injury like a concussion?
In the state of Florida, a medical professional has to be the one to clear someone to return once they've been removed. So if an athlete has been removed from play, typically a physician would have to sign off for a minor, at least, to be able to go back to participate. So again, I mean, a lot of pediatricians nowadays, I think, are familiar with that process because it's been in place for a while. There are some other maybe circumstances where someone would need to see a specialist, perhaps a neuropsychologist like myself, or a neurologist. But a lot of times the athletic trainers are the ones at the high school level or college level, maybe, where they're seeing those things happen initially. And where in cases where athletic trainers are not available, often it's the coaches or volunteer parents, that are there initially to try to identify these things and then bring them to a medical professional afterwards to have them checked out and then eventually cleared.
All right. Well, this is wonderful information to definitely keep in mind as we're headed into all these sports this season. So we really appreciate your time, Dr. LaGalbo, and take care. Hope to see you again soon.
Great. Thank you, Bridgett. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Believe it or not, some folks are going to enjoy Halloween this Friday at Universal Studios. And Laverne McGee got a preview yesterday. Here it is.
Are we going to see any? Oh! This is our 33rd year here at Halloween Horror Nights, Orlando, Florida. And we have 10 haunted houses this year, 5 incredible scare zones, and we're also bringing back Nightmare Fuel Nocturnal Circus, which is an incredible and fantastic live show for our guests.
Those creatures, if they hear you, they will hunt you. So, Quiet Place, we're also featuring in A Quiet Place American Sign Language, which the main character, Reagan, she is deaf and she performs American Sign Language. We have amazing content, 10 incredible haunted houses, 5 scare zones, a live show, and so much more. Our chefs have gone outside of their comfort zone, creating amazing specialty foods. We also have incredible, unique merchandise. There's something for everyone at Halloween Horror Nights.
Listen to my whisper.
These 5 scare zones are incredibly immersive. They're all very different to each other, and they provide our guests with some really cool, unique experiences.
Everybody's gonna love this character.
Yeah. Now this is Phoebe.
Phoebe Spengler, and Phoebe is fighting Garaka, the big bad. Garaka's terrifying, way too big. We have Nadim over here fighting. They have teamed up, and they can bring this monster down, hopefully, or else we might all just freeze to death.
Halloween Horror Night starts on Friday and runs until November 3rd.
These are some of the horrifying monsters that you'll find in our Monstros, Monsters of Latin America house. And this is El Sabon and Muerte.
El Muerte.
Yes. En Muerte, yes. Death is behind us.
This is too scary for me. I'm out of here. Kelly, are you sure this is a safe place to hide?
They're coming from everywhere.
Laverne McGee, Getting Results News 6.
It's safety in numbers if you're going to go to Halloween Horror Nights. I know I could never go through those houses all by myself, so bring a friend and have fun out there. You know what, they have a Stay Puft Marshmallow S'more that look really good, but you can check out more in the Loop Theme Park Scoops newsletter on clickorlando.com and get all the insider information there. So we're going to let you go for now, and we'll be back at noon with more news and weather, and we'll see you for tomorrow for more breakfast. Take care.